Keith here for Am I Rich? Today's stock that I think is cheap is Google, also known as Alphabet for some reason. And Google, ticker symbol is GOOG or GOOGL, just for two different income classes of stocks. But generally for a retail investor, those don't make any difference, at least for Google's case. And I think it's cheap. Well, first there's news about Google. Google just came out with their earnings and they kind of blew earnings out of the water. They did really well, but then the stock did not really reflect that great improvement. And so the reason for it is when they were in their earnings reporting, they basically gave kind of ambiguous answers at how they're going to maintain their revenue, especially with new mobile ads, the way they have to do advertising on mobile phones, and how they have to kind of pay more basically per customer to get the same amount of revenue. So, and they didn't want to like elaborate too much on it. So basically, analysts weren't very excited, and hedge funds have kind of not thought of Google as a great buy at the moment. And so why do I think it's a great buy? So, well, let's go with its financials first. Right now the stock price, I think after hours, it was sitting at $1,144.50 US. And that puts it at a PE ratio of about 26. And I think they estimate a forward PE ratio of 24. So these are not like amazing, these are very average. And with the forward PE being 24, which is not significantly lower than its current PE, it kind of sees, people are seeing it as kind of not growing as fast as it was. And then the price to book ratio is about 4.5, which isn't cheap. Isn't the most expensive either, but it isn't cheap. So why do I think the stock itself is cheap? Well, a stock with the dividend, no dividend, and this kind of average PE ratio, average price to book ratio, or a little bit high price to book ratio, it has to have some growth to it. And Google currently does. I mean, Google has been growing just a little bit above average market for a while, but as of this last year, they really kicked into high gear. So I think the 5-year growth rate is, in my view, is about 21%, which is not bad. It's better than the S&P, so the average market. And I think there's a lot of growth vectors for this company. So I have a bull thesis on this company, and I really like it. And I think the main reason is it has a huge moat. Everybody knows Google. If you are searching something on the internet, the vast majority of people will say they're Googling something. So it's ubiquitous. Like everybody knows it. It's like McDonald's or Coca-Cola, something like that. People just know it. So it has that moat going for it. Now, currently advertising, they do ads on many websites, so they have a pretty, I don't know if it's a total moat, but they have a pretty strong foothold anyways in the advertising business. I think their main competitor would probably be something like Facebook, but Facebook's really constrained to their platforms for where they advertise, at least the way they do it. You might say Microsoft might compete with them, but so far Microsoft hasn't been able to kind of put Google away for most things. And really, if you're on your phone, and aside from using Facebook or Instagram or some other chatting apps, you might want to search something up on the internet, and there's a good chance you're using Google Chrome, or at least you're Googling something or getting some kind of Google search results or a website that's using Google ads. So I kind of think they still have a pretty solid footing in the advertising business. Now, that said, they might not be growing as much in the advertising business as far as their regular ads, but I still see that as a huge advantage. And then the other thing is they have YouTube. They bought YouTube a long time ago, and YouTube just keeps getting bigger. It's arguably, they don't always have exact numbers out there, but it's arguably the biggest online streaming service. People watch YouTube more than they watch Facebook videos or Microsoft streaming videos. You might say Netflix is a competitor, but Netflix, on the other hand, is kind of a different dynamic. And I can see YouTube as being, for certain people, it's more popular. And for certain things, like companies, a lot of companies or old television stations, they're putting their videos on YouTube because it's either cheap or free to post their videos on there, and it's a good videos hosting service just for that. And it reaches so many people as opposed to something like Netflix, and that's just, I think YouTube's just going to keep growing, and they have a potential of competing with Netflix in the future. You know, they have their premium kind of YouTube TV stuff, but another growth vector, for a reason I think this is amazing, like, is that they have so many apps that people just use in their daily life. Like, they have Waymo for autonomous car driving, and they have Google Maps. So people might say, well, what about Tesla? Tesla has more Google, or more driven miles in a autonomous vehicle, or a vehicle that's trying to use autonomous programming or AI programming. And so they have all these kilometers because people are driving these Teslas around. But I would argue, you know, Tesla, they had an accident where somebody died. Google has not had that situation, and with their Google cars, they do have cars driving around, not as many as Tesla, obviously, but because they're not selling them like Tesla. But they are in the plans on working with Fiat Chrysler to do, you know, minivans, and I think a few other companies to put in autonomous driving to test that out. Plus, many people, so many people use Google Maps to direct themselves nowadays, and they are collecting data from that. They know traffic around the world, they know where people go, they know shortcuts, they know, like, so much information that something like Tesla wouldn't have. So I kind of see this as a big advantage as far as the driverless cars go. Now, whether they're going to win this driverless car race or be totally in it or not, it's hard to know, but so far they seem to be doing well, and I think they have a good shot at it. Another positive I see for them is that they have the Android platform that's on cell phones. Just about every like the majority of cell phones are on Android. The only other real competitor is the Apple iOS, and either you're an Apple person or you're not, and if you're not, then you're probably using Android. So they have that advantage, just to keep their name out there. I don't know, they're probably not making as much money as they could off of this platform, but they're doing fine. So, and then another thing to like about this company, they are in the forefront of AI. They have massive servers, they have massive data, they have massive data crunching, speech recognition software. They are really at the forefront of that. They have these things like Google Home Mini. I'm not sure that I think those are the best. I think they're kind of like 3D headsets or whatever, where you put like goggles on your head. It's a niche market. I don't know that it's really something that's going to take off completely. It might, but that's not something I think is like the way of the future necessarily. But speech recognition, they have that. You know, they can do so much with that, and that is a really big thing in the future, I think. So just having that kind of AI and data puts them at a huge advantage compared to many companies. And then they have the cloud, you know, just like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. I kind of think Microsoft, honestly, is a really good competitor to Amazon in that space, but Google's no slouch. They're also there, and if you know, people are going to back up their photos on Google if they have an Android phone. So it is a space that I think has good potential as well. And then one other thing I really love about this company is that the average public can't invest in something like SpaceX, but Google has over 7% stake in SpaceX. And if you want to invest in Google, you kind of get a piece of SpaceX. And SpaceX, for those of you who don't know, is currently like the most well-known or fastest growing spaceship company. And in the future, if it's a long-term future, but if space travel becomes kind of a real thing, then I think SpaceX is really taking advantage of that. So I really love this company for all those reasons. And, they might, as far as the stock, they might slow down on some revenue as far as attracting ad numbers. But these people, they made like over $18 billion in free cash flow just this last quarter. They have such a grasp on so many kind of future technologies. And I really see them as a company that, worst case scenario, like best case scenario is, they hit a home run on all these different topics and they're basically like dominating business in the world. Worst case scenario is that they aren't the forefront of a lot of these things, but they're still in the game, is what I see. Kind of like Microsoft used to be. Microsoft, after it had first exploded to be like the main operating system around the world, then it kind of just stagnated. Their company didn't do that well, and Bill Gates was kind of transitioning out. But they had so much money and they had so much kind of finger dabbling around in every sector that they were interested in, that they just hung around. They still had a basic business platform that people still were involved in, like companies always using them. And they eventually came back and they're growing again, like very, very well. So I kind of see Google as a company, like a worst case scenario is like the old Microsoft, where they kind of dwindle a little bit as far as their growth, but the super long term, I see, 10 plus years out, I see this company doing really well. So the only negative I really see with Google right now is it doesn't pay a dividend. But again, if it starts to be a company where they like start running out of ideas, they might start paying a dividend. And so, I just see this as a great way to be involved in all the cutting edge technology as far as investing goes. And in the long term, I don't really see losing money is that easy, considering how widespread Google is. Just another thing is, some arguments, they don't have exposure to China. So the Chinese market, if the Chinese market ever opens up to competition, Google will be good competition. If they don't want to play by the rules, I guess the way they have been in global rules at least, then they'll miss out on Google. Google will miss out on being in China, but so are many other countries. They don't have the risk then, at least from Chinese as well. So that's just a good thing as well. So anyways, I don't know, it's just a very positive talk about Google, but if you guys have any thoughts about Google or any more ideas of why Google's a great buy or not, let me know in the comments below. But anyways, I think I personally might consider investing in Google at its current price. I see it going up probably in the next, if not this quarter, very likely the next 6 months. So I would really like to look at Google. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.